What's up guys, John here from Blackjack Contracting and the REI Contractor Show. Welcome back to East 12th and our continuation of our duplex series. We just are wrapping up the trade stage ready for inspection before we go to installation. So we've completed the HVAC rough-in, the plumbing rough-in, and the electrical rough-in. So now we need to have a building inspection. So we're going to do framing, we're going to do trades at the same time. We're in Hamilton. Hamilton does not have an HVAC inspection. We have a plumbing inspection and framing inspection, and then the ESA, the Electrical Safety Authority, is a completely separate inspection, and that's been completed already. So we're going to show you around here. We're going to show you some of the tidbits when it comes to the rough-ins that are kind of important, and then we'll talk about the next part. Okay, so we're standing in our basement laundry closet. We've actually had to make some adjustments on the fly here because when we get to site measuring, the laundry was actually supposed to be behind us. This was supposed to be the closet. But we really want to obtain 34 inches for laundry and we weren't going to get it there. So we've had to spin this around a little bit. Sometimes that happens on job sites. We have to make site measurement changes. When you read your drawings, it always says contractor to verify, and that's why things happen. They don't precisely line up as the drawings say. So we're out here, so we have our laundry box. This is now this is a non-fire rated wall, which is what we're after. So once this is drywall, this ring will clip on. This will be a nice finished surface, so our laundry gets our water and our drain from here. We also have, our electrical for our washing machine. We have our electrical for a dryer. Make sure when you install a big box like this that you put double-sided support so that when you try to push your plug on, it doesn't fall in the wall. And then you can see the venting system here. The dryer vent, which is actually just on the other side right now, we're going to have this moved over later on today, is going to be sticking through the bottom 4-inch vent that goes straight outside for your dryer exhaust. Okay, so now we're speaking about my expertise of this, obviously the electrical. So we're doing the downstairs kitchen rough-in here, and what most people realize is how much wiring actually goes into a kitchen rough-in, especially if you're going to replace the kitchen on the main floor. We've already done that. Down here we got our brand new rough-in. We have a sink underneath the window. We have a dishwasher next to it. Whatever, you need to have a receptacle at every open counter space that they could use for prep space. And you have to have a minimum of 2 20-amp circuits. It gets a little more complicated from there, but you need to have at least 2 20-amp circuits. And you need to have no more than 2 receptacles per circuit. So down here we're going to have 4 sections of counter space. We have 4 receptacles, 2 circuits. Anything within 5 feet of the sink, anywhere you can touch the sink, needs to be GFI protected. And so this one right here, that's closest thing, will be GFI protected, and it'll protect the next one as well. Also, you need to make sure you have a dedicated circuit for your dishwasher, a dedicated circuit for your fridge, sorry. And then we need to have a wire for the hood fan. So I don't know if you can see over here, we'll show you shortly. We have our hood fan wire. If it's just going to be a straight hood fan exhaust, normal and cheap, it just needs to be on a general purpose circuit, just as counts as one device. If you plan on putting a microwave in, it needs to be a separate circuit right from the panel because it's going to need to be arc fault protected. I'll do a video about arc fault protection later. But just want to make sure pretty much everything in the kitchen's by itself, except for you can tie in 2 kitchen receptacles together. And that's going to prevent you from having all that stripping issues that you're used to from back in the day. The way we do it nowadays, there should be really no reason for any tripping unless there's a major problem. Okay, here's the rough-in for the interconnected smoke detector system. With the legal second suites, we're using the Part 11 of the building code, which allows for a 20-minute fire separation. The only way we can get that is by doing an interconnected smoke detector system for both floors and by having a smoke detector in the furnace, which we'll show you on the final video. What I want you to know here is, this is a little known fact that gets a lot of mistaken, is that the steel wrap cable, this is called AC90, the nickname of it's BX. Now this is a 14-3, so it has a black, a red, and a white. The red is the signal wire, which sets the rest off if you get a smoke detector signal. What's important to know is that BX wire has to be used when you go between the floors because we're breaking fire separation with it, and that can take more heat than this regular. This is called NMD90, nickname is Romex. So we use this down here, and we interconnect box to box to box because we need one in every bedroom, we need one in the common space, and we need one in the furnace room. Once we come out of here and go upstairs, we need to make that BX, and then we need to loop the rest in BX. This gets missed a lot, and this is something that electrical inspectors are starting to look for more and more. Ideally, it was actually supposed to be red, but we couldn't get the cable, so the inspectors are letting it go. So these are really important part of the process, and we have to make sure these are working, obviously, for safety purposes. So just make sure that they're roughed in. Now, one thing that's important to know too is that it needs to be labeled when you're doing a 2-gang service. So each service is going to have their own, each unit is going to have their own hydro. It needs to be labeled which unit is feeding them, because what's going to happen is that they're not going to be able to shut that off from upstairs without coming down here. So it need to be clearly labeled for safety purposes. So here we have a heat run in one of the bedrooms. We need to have at least a 5-inch heat run in each room in the basement suite. We want to make sure that we have at least 2 colder air returns in the basement so that we're getting adequate airflow. If you see a lot of these old houses, they'll have 3 or 4-inch runs going to the main floor, which we removed from here. It's okay for heat, not great, but it's really bad to try to cool with that short. You need a lot of airflow. So whenever you're doing this, HVAC is really inexpensive to have a couple heat runs replaced. So I want, you should definitely replace them to 5-inch whenever possible. So every job's going to have challenges, and some people are going to make mistakes. It happens in almost every job. You try to eliminate it, but it just seems to be Murphy's Law. There's no way around it. So what we had here is we had a big plumbing stack coming here from the original house, and obviously with the window, and this is the shower location. So what we've had to do here is the plumber drilled through the floor joist, and you're only allowed a certain percentage, and a 3-inch is just too big on a 2x8. He did it on purpose because he didn't want to have a big bulkhead in front of the window. I can understand. So it's caused a few issues we've had to solve. Because the floor joist lost its integrity, what we've had to do here is install a new header this direction and a new doubled sister joist in this direction to pick up the weight of this floor joist with joist hangers. This was inspector approved. Now, sometimes if this happens, depending on the inspector, they might require a structural engineer, which can get costly and timely, so you want to avoid this whenever possible. This was a really lousy situation that sometimes happens that you got to deal with, but when you're looking at this from the beginning, try to avoid stuff like this. So here we have our new main stack. This goes from the attic down, which picks up the venting for the house and the airflow, and we replace it down here into the ground. We've had to break this up into the ground as well. So this house used to have cast iron. Whenever possible and you're doing a major plumbing job, try to replace it with PVC, because PVC is going to last forever now. The cast iron rots over time and you get little bits of leaks. So while you're in the middle of this process, it's a lot cheaper and easier to do it now than having leaks, rather than trying to save the cast iron cut into it. So I know we were talking about trade roughings on this video, but I just want to make a point here that we weren't able to show you on last time. So we have 2 brand new windows going here. They're for natural light and egress. But one thing we want to be very careful about as we're framing these places is that because the floor joists go from center to the outside wall and the windows are on the outside wall, the weight of the floor joists are carrying over top of the window. So it's important to make sure we're picking up the load with an internal header. And on top of the bricklet, we'll put a lintel outside. If you're going the opposite direction, the floor joists are not being carried, then you don't need this internal structure. The house has already done it for you. And here we have our brand new furnace. As you can see here, it's a high efficiency. We got the double piping here, and it's a mid-grade, nice little furnace. COVID times have really made lower end furnaces hard to get, so we're having to use a little bit up model, which is never a bad thing, just a little more pricey. So what we have here is we have a fresh air and we have an exhaust. Because this furnace room is going to be built pretty airtight, we need to have that. So if you have a large room, it's okay to bring air in from the room, but in a tight room like this that's being fire separated, we need to bring in fresh air as well as exhaust. Remember, if you see black pipes coming off your furnace, we need to get those replaced because the glue fails on the exhaust pipe because of the high heat, and that's illegal, I think, for the last 8-9 years. That's why we use the white pipe with the special black glue that's really heat resistant. And as you remember before, the furnace was in the middle of the house. We've moved it into its own room here, and so that's why you see brand new ductwork here that picks up and then it ties into the old ductwork near the back, and we made it a little shallower for head height. Well, as you can see here, we have this beautiful little plumbing manifold. It's a most cost-effective way of building a manifold. The plumber did a great job. So what we have here is individual runs. So we separate the water lines between the floors for pressure purposes. So here we can shut off the upstairs, the downstairs, the outside hose bibs, and the feed in here. So for maintenance purposes and for winter utilization and being able to shut the outside water off, all you have to do is come in here instead of having to put an access panel in the ceiling, which breaks fire separation. So that pretty much sums up the rough-in stage. Obviously there's quite a bit into it. That's about the longest stage there is in the process other than the final finishing. It's usually about 2 to 3 week process, and then you got your inspections. So the inspections, one's already happened, we're about to have the other one. As you can see, we've had our material for the next stage dropped off. We got our nice stack of 1/2 inch there, and in front of me we've got a nice stack of 5/8. Usually what I like to do is right after the trades are ready for inspections, we'll get the next 2 stages of material dropped off, so all the insulation, all the drywall, the resilient channel. So after the inspections pass, what we're going to do is come in here and we're going to install the insulation, we're going to install all the soundproofing, and we're going to install the resilient channel. Right after that, we need to have another inspection, the insulation inspection, the soundproofing inspection. This is not a long process, it's a few days. It's not the funnest process in the world, obviously, but it's important. And then as soon as that's done, we'll have the inspection, then we're ready to board. Once the boarding's up, we won't have any more inspections until the end. So we will come back and shoot it as soon as the insulation's installed in the vapor barrier. This is obviously a very important part. So once we have done that, then we're off to the races. It's going to be fly fast and furious now. So if you're doing a 2-part renovation, you're doing a main floor and you're doing a basement, right after this stage is done, this is where you can get the upstairs finished and ready for rent. We want to make sure our smoke detectors are in place before you put people in, and we want to make sure our soundproofing's in. It's not, I mean, in my opinion, if you can wait on filling the upstairs, the longer the better, because it's still going to be noisy and dusty. But I know some people it's important financially, so we get it done right about here. We just want to make sure that all the rough-ins are done so we're not affecting the main floor. This house, we're going to have the water main upgraded. We'll show you that when it's done, because we only had a 1/2 inch lead line here. We want to get up to a 1 inch for great water pressure. So I really appreciate everybody watching. It's been a lot of fun doing this series. We've had a lot of great feedback. The next one will answer a lot more of the questions, because that's when we'll get into the soundproofing and insulation. This one we're doing building code, minimum code. There is some upgrade options which we can discuss, and I really appreciate you watching. Thanks for liking and subscribing, and if you haven't done so, please do so, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thanks, guys.